The fluorescent lights of Meridian Pharmaceuticals' research lab hummed overhead as I stared at my experimental data one last time. 6 years of research, countless sleepless nights, and breakthroughs that could revolutionize cancer treatment, all about to be dismissed as worthless by people who didn't understand what they were looking at. My name is Dr. Maya Patel, and I was about to be fired for being Mike. Dr. Patel, Amanda from HR called from my office doorway. Dr. Richardson would like to see you now. I nodded, carefully saving my files to my personal encrypted drive. They tried to delete everything once I was gone, but I'd learned long ago to keep backups. In this industry, data was more valuable than gold. The walk to the executive floor felt surreal. Colleagues avoided my eyes, hurrying past as if failure was contagious. Only Dr. Sarah Chen, my postdoc researcher, dared to give me a supportive smile. She knew what was really happening. She'd been the one to discover the anomaly in Meridian's flagship drug trials. Dr. James Richardson's corner office screamed corporate success. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, and a view of Boston's skyline that probably cost more than my annual salary. He sat behind his massive desk, flanked by two men I recognized from the board. "Ah, Dr. Patel," he didn't bother standing. "I assume you know why you're here. Is it about my recent findings regarding MRD27's protein binding mechanism?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. His jaw tightened. "It's about your persistent attempts to undermine this company's most important drug development program with your alternative theories." Alternative theories. That's what they called actual science when it threatened their profits. "My research indicates significant risks in the current molecular structure." I began, pulling out my tablet. "The protein folding simulations show." "Your simulations," he cut me off, "are based on unproven methodologies. The traditional trials show MRD27 is perfectly safe and effective. Because you designed those trials to show exactly what you wanted them to show." I thought but didn't say. "Furthermore," he continued, "your recent publication submissions to medical journals questioning established pharmaceutical research methods have brought unwanted attention to Meridian's development processes." Ah, there it was. I dared to suggest that the industry's standard trial procedures might miss crucial molecular interactions. That some cancer drugs might actually be making certain tumors more aggressive in the long term. "The board has decided that your research interests no longer align with Meridian's goals." He pushed a document across the desk. "We're terminating your position, effective immediately." I glanced at the severance agreement. The number was surprisingly large. They really wanted me to go quietly. "And my research data?" "Company property," one of the board members spoke for the first time. "Along with any pending patents or discoveries." I signed the papers without argument. Let them think they'd won. "Dr. Patel," Richardson called as I turned to leave. "I hope you understand. This isn't personal. But your theories about protein mutation cascades, your insistence on longer trial periods, it's just not practical in today's market." I met his eyes. "Science isn't about practicality, Dr. Richardson. It's about truth." "Truth?" He laughed. "Truth is MRD27 will be approved in 6 months, and Meridian will help millions of cancer patients while making billions in profit. That's the only truth that matters." If only he knew what Sarah and I had discovered in those protein mutation cascades. What would start happening in the phase IA trials that were starting next week. Security was waiting to escort me out. Standard procedure for terminated research staff. Can't have disgruntled scientists accessing sensitive data. They needn't have bothered. Everything important was already safely stored where they couldn't reach it. In the lobby, Sarah was waiting with my coat. "It's done." "Just like we expected," I replied quietly. "Has the backup been secured?" She nodded. "Everything's ready. Dr. Kumar at the FDA has been reviewing the preliminary data. He's concerned." He should be. I glanced back at the building that had been my professional home for 6 years. How long until they realize? The first signs should show up in the new trial group within 3 months. By 6 months, she trailed off. I'd warned them. Shown them the computer models, the molecular simulations, the early indicators that their miracle drug had a hidden dark side. But they were too invested, too eager for their blockbuster cancer treatment to listen. "Keep me posted," I said, heading for my car. "And Sarah, be careful. They'll be watching everyone who worked with me." "Don't worry about me," she smiled. I learned from the best how to hide important data in plain sight. At home, I opened my laptop and began composing emails. One to Dr. Kumar at the FDA, attaching the full dataset that proved MRD27's fatal flaw. One to the editors of Nature Biotechnology, who had been sitting on my controversial paper about protein mutation cascades. And one to Dr. Helen Martinez at Stanford, who had offered me a research position months ago. As if she'd known I'd need an escape plan. My phone buzzed. A text from Richardson. I hope you understand this was a business decision. Your theories were interesting but impractical. No hard feelings. I thought about the patients in the phase aita trials, about the protein mutations we discovered, about how MRD27 didn't just fail to stop certain cancers, it made them evolve faster. No hard feelings, I typed back. Good luck with the trials. They thought they'd silenced a troublesome researcher. Instead, they freed me to become their worst nightmare, a scientist with nothing left to lose and data that could bring down their entire house of cards. I opened my research files and began writing a new paper. Its title: Hidden Mutation Cascades in Targeted Cancer Therapies, a case study in pharmaceutical trial failure. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back. Sometimes it's simply waiting for the data to prove you right. And in 6 months, when their miracle drug started showing its true colors in the phase aita trials, they'd learned what every scientist knows. You can't hide the truth forever. Not when someone knows exactly where to look for it. The next 6 months were the longest and shortest of my life. While Meridian trumpeted the beginning of MRD27's phase aita trials, I settled into my new role at Stanford, building a research team dedicated to studying protein mutation cascades in cancer treatments. Sarah kept me updated through secure channels. First anomalies showing up in patient group C, she messaged 3 months in. Exactly where your models predicted. They're calling it a statistical outlier. I was presenting my research at a molecular biology conference when the first real warning signs appeared. Dr. Kumar from the FDA called me directly. Dr. Patel, his voice was grave. We're seeing a pattern in the MRD27 trials that matches your predictions. How quickly can you get to Washington? The next day, I sat in a secure FDA conference room, explaining my protein mutation cascade theory to a panel of increasingly concerned regulators. In simple terms, I concluded, pulling up my simulation models, MRD27 doesn't just fail to stop certain cancer types. It forces them to evolve faster, developing resistance not just to MRD27, but to other treatments as well. Why didn't this show up in earlier trials? One regulator asked. Because they weren't looking for it, I explained. Traditional trials track tumor size and spread, but they don't usually analyze how the cancer cells are changing at a molecular level. My research shows that some treatments can trigger what I call accelerated evolutionary response in cancer cells. Like antibiotics creating superbugs, Dr. Kumar nodded. But with cancer. Exactly, and MRD27's specific molecular structure makes it particularly likely to trigger this response. The meeting lasted hours. By the end, the FDA had ordered an immediate review of all MRD27 trial data, with a focus on my mutation cascade markers. That evening, my phone exploded with notifications. Meridian's stock had dropped 15% on news of the FDA review. Dr. Richardson was quoted claiming it was a routine examination that would validate MRD27's safety and efficacy. Sarah's message told a different story. Total panic here. They're reviewing all the trial data, finally seeing what we saw months ago. Richardson looking like he's aged 10 years. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on finishing my comprehensive paper on protein mutation cascades, now with added data from the MRD27 trials. Nature Biotechnology had fast-tracked its publication. 4 weeks later, the truth became impossible to hide. Multiple patients in the phase aita trials showed exactly what my models had predicted. Their cancers weren't just surviving the treatment, they were adapting and evolving at an unprecedented rate. The FDA suspended the trials immediately. Meridian's stock plunged 60% in a single day. Dr. Richardson was forced to resign, and my phone started ringing with calls from every major pharmaceutical company and research institution in the world. But I wasn't interested in private sector offers. Instead, I accepted a joint position with Stanford and the FDA. heading a new initiative to reform pharmaceutical trial protocols. The press called it a paradigm shift in cancer research. Scientific American ran a cover story, The Patel Protocol: How One Scientist in Practical Theory is Revolutionizing Drug Development. Sarah joined my team at Stanford, bringing with her a complete dataset that proved Meridian had seen early warning signs of the mutation cascade, but chose to ignore them. They kept hoping it was a statistical anomaly, she explained during one late-night research session, even when your models predicted exactly what would happen. The congressional hearings were almost anticlimactic. I testified about the need for more rigorous trial protocols, about how corporate pressure to fast-track drugs was putting patients at risk. Dr. Richardson was there too, looking much older than he had in his corner office 6 months ago. Dr. Patel, he approached me during a break. We should have listened. Yes, I said simply, you should have. How did you know? He asked. How were you so sure? Because I did what scientists are supposed to do, I replied. I followed the data, even when it told me something I didn't want to hear. The aftermath transformed pharmaceutical research. The Patel protocol, requiring advanced molecular monitoring during drug trials, became industry standard. My protein mutation cascade models were integrated into drug development processes worldwide. 1 year later, I stood at a podium in Stockholm, preparing to deliver my Nobel lecture. The prize wasn't just for discovering the mutation cascade effect. It was for fundamentally changing how we develop and test cancer drugs. Looking out at the audience, I saw faces that told different parts of my story. Sarah, now heading her own research team. Dr. Kumar, who had believed in my findings when it mattered most. Even Dr. Richardson, who had been humbled into becoming an advocate for research integrity. Science, I began, is not about confirming what we want to believe. It's about discovering what we need to know. Sometimes that truth is inconvenient. Sometimes it threatens profits or challenges established practices. But in medicine, ignoring truth costs lives. The changes we implemented saved thousands of cancer patients from receiving treatments that might have made their conditions worse. More importantly, it established a new standard for pharmaceutical research, one that prioritized patient safety over corporate profits. Last week, I received a message from a woman whose mother had been in the MRD-27 trials. Thank you, she wrote, for having the courage to speak up. Mom was one of the lucky ones. They caught the mutation cascade early because of your warnings. You saved her life by losing your job. I keep that message pinned above my desk at Stanford, next to the Nobel Medal. Not as a reminder of vindication, but as a reminder of why we do this work. Sometimes, being right isn't about proving others wrong. It's about preventing harm, about standing firm when data tells an unpopular truth. My new research center at Stanford is filled with young scientists who understand this. They come from all over the world, drawn by the chance to do research the right way, following data wherever it leads, regardless of corporate pressure or conventional wisdom. Dr. Patel, one of my graduate students, asked recently, "Weren't you afraid when you challenged Meridian? When you risked your career?" I showed her the mutation cascade models that had started everything. In science, I explained, the only thing we should fear is failing to speak truth when lives are at stake. That's the real lesson of the MRD-27 story. Not that one scientist was right and a corporation was wrong, but that truth matters. That data doesn't care about stock prices or corporate reputations. That real science serves only one master, reality. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure the next generation of scientists understands that courage is just as important as intelligence in advancing human knowledge. That's not just a lesson in pharmaceutical research. That's a lesson in scientific integrity. That's the real legacy of the protein mutation cascade discovery.